Alright, into Kantavad video. Smiling Andy. Anyway, so yeah, there's some concession that this is intractable, but then there's some argument that we have to find some way to coexist. And from my perspective, coexistence is basically you win, I lose. So it's kind of a non-starter in a sense. Because we're at cross purposes. Very substantially crossed purposes. So I'll get into that. I was just thinking about the idea of this, who's the teacher and who's the student, who's, the whole acquisition of this thing called enlightenment and the way it is manifests in us in terms of when we think we're making progress or when we think we're going forward in terms of our way of thinking. And having a lot of people use Nietzsche as a source, and and then my impression, my reading of Nietzsche is this infantile, do as I say, not as I do, clearly, and this silly idea that I can break things. Look how easily I can break charity. Look how easy I can break good deeds. Look how easy I can break any kind of anything. I can just break. I can point out the flaw, because yes, we're humans and every system we come up with is flawed. And you see that a lot in what Andy's doing, because socialism is tainted by dictatorships. It's failed. Yet he lives in a society where he might fairly deduce that the Canadian system is more efficient than the American system in most respects. I mean, the one exception being it doesn't allow the rich to have much better health care than the poor. And to have it now. Now. I'm important. They're not. So yes, America allows more of that to happen. I'm important. Fuck them. They're only half as tall as me, the thems. But anyway, I digress. It's just, there's so many subjects that Andy bumps into as he bumps through the ball play here. He just bangs into subjects all over the place and just superficially, rubs his anus on them and then moves on. It's just my characterization. You can have a different characterization, but that's what I'm seeing. But anyway, alright, so I'll get to the substance of this simpler argument that I would argue, just explaining why there's no alternative, in a sense, to some sort of, in the end, kind of conflict. As if we represented 50% of the population, if 50% was you and 50% was me, we'd be in really big trouble, because it's just not a reconcilable difference. And again, it's because of the reason I argued before, is because you're the one that has the aggressive stance. You're defending an aggression, a system that affects me. And I would argue I'm defending a system that doesn't really affect you in any substantial way. If you win, I get tortured forever, or until the universe decides to put this shithole out of its misery. So the meat grinder runs. People like me, and people a lot worse off, get ground up by it, get beaten up and brutalized forever, quote unquote. Tortured. So torture takes place. I have to accept, well, you won, I'm going to torture you. Where, in the case of me winning, what do you have to give up? One little vice. One vice you lived most of your life, 90% of your current life, 99 to 98% of your current life, something like that, 96% of your current life, without needing to bother with. No problem. I lived fine without it. I think you would say that the life you lived was perfectly fine. You weren't sensing some horrid deprivation in your life because you didn't have a little thing to be responsible for. It wasn't a critical thing to your gratification or satisfaction. It wasn't crippling, and it was far from torturous. I mean, if I had made you a sterile male, I don't think you would say, gee, my life is over. I won't be able to tantra anymore because I'm sterile. I'm totally defeated. My life is ruined. Where I'm going to argue, you're going to ruin people with your philosophy. You're going to put them in Poe's nightmare, and forever. You're just going to keep putting them in the torture chamber. You keep putting them in the chamber of horrors, and you're going to say it's okay because if I was in there, I'd have a good time. Yeah. Again, I'm supposed to believe you have these superpowers, and that these superpowers are somehow just so easily to access. We just have a couple of little thoughts, go mumbo, mumbo, jumbo, jumbo, and everything's okay. Torture away. I don't buy it, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so that's sort of the argument here, is that we're invested in completely different things, and I'm arguing that what's at risk for you is a little thing. What's at risk for me is everything I value. So how can I concede defeat? How can I not go nuclear if it's required? It's all or nothing from my side. There just can't be a fair compromise. I can torture you a little bit. I'll accept you torturing me a little bit. Don't get me wrong. I'll accept a one-child policy or something. But, you know, I'm just saying. It's silly for me to say it's okay. I'll accept that. You're worth it. Not killing you is worth it. Can't make that a rational equation. I'd rather just annihilate all your stupidities and just say, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. I'm not going to be bound here anymore by these assholes. I won't keep falling out of ignorant vaginas. Oh, thank frickin' determinism. So anyway, so yeah, I could also equate it to like the Martian argument. I mean, you know, you're asking me to stay a tortured human, and I'm asking you to become a, not in any way could we perceive it as a Holocaust Martian, in a condition that nobody cries for. I certainly will weep for the people you will torture. You're not going to weep for the non-existent Martians, and you wouldn't weep for the non-existent humans by rational standards. Only by some projection of human good. You know, fuck brain good, smart brain bad. You know, some kind of Animal Farm logic. We'll fix the bigotry with bigotry. Anyway, so yes, it's you know, absent Martians versus tortured humans. Can't really make that into a equal sign. It just doesn't. There's no equal sign there in terms of the Holocaust. The Holocaust of the absent Martians can't really be compared to a giant pool of tortured humans and say, gee, those are equally bad things. I don't think it's going to be reasonably stated. Alright, so that's my argument to what's at stake here, and why the fact is our stakes are fundamentally and hugely different. You have to give up a simple notion in your head. Oh, humans won't exist anymore, blah blah blah, in the future. Blah, 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 blah. A little notion in your head that it needs to exist. There's no evidence that it needs to exist. There's no evidence that it'll be a horror. And it's inevitable to boot, which makes it even a funnier argument. It's going to happen anyway, so who cares? A little bit sooner, come on. Spare us all going over the cliff and horribly getting, you know, brutalized. Yeah, just save us the trouble. Gracefully exit. Don't exit spewing diarrhea all over the place. Anyway, so I just wanted to touch on something, you know, that comes up often in these arguments about what is the axioms. And so he used this argument that you know, there's this traditional views and the mob view and the herd view, and I've you know, we've gone to pains to articulate our own positions, and you keep, straw manning me with conventional view. I mean, obviously I'm not defending the herd view. So when you say something like, well, Hitler was bad as an axiom, no, that's not the axiom. The axiom is torture is bad, ignorant bigotry is bad. I mean, the Nazis embarrassed themselves as philosophers, right? I mean, it's just embarrassingly poor reasoning. Even going so far, in their final solution, right? Like I said, I get called a Holocaust denier, but I think I'm more like, I'm telling the truth. But anyway, where, the decision was made to just dispose of. And they sit there and articulated the very thing they were afraid of, creating a super Jew. I mean, that was what they were afraid of, right? I mean, there's going to be Jews who are going to survive all of the indignities they've piled on. We'll work them to death. We'll basically starve them. We'll expose them to disease. We'll keep them in horribly deprivated conditions. And the ones that survive, well, they're the most dangerous. The ones that survive the gauntlet, because now I've made a super Jew. We can't have that. So, yeah, you know what to do. Back the truck over them or find some other way to, make sure the super Jews don't get loose. I'm just saying, you can see how pitiful that is in the context of some argument that we're trying to improve the human race. But no, it's not the human. Yes, it's just a bigoted section of the human race, and that's all it is, bigoted. Because if they did outperform you, if they did become stronger than you, the wimpy Nazis weren't willing to admit defeat, admit there's somebody that beat the shit out of them. That they might earn it more than they have. They might be the weaker because they haven't had to struggle and fight. Where they did, of course, and that's part of what made Germany strong, was the fact that they had survived such brutal treatment. So anyway, just throwing that in, that it's not an axiom that Hitler's bad. Hitler's bad because the categories, the properties, the elements of what the whole thing represented. There's a lot of bad ones in there. A lot of waste and torture and all that kind of crap. And there's not just Hitler. It's not just one ideological statement. It's a whole collection of crap that disqualify him as being anything but a bad thing, by definition, by the categories he falls into. His name fits in all these negative categories. He's the winner of, you're in the most negative categories possible. Bravo. That's why he's bad. It's not the axiom. The axioms are underneath. The axioms are, I can't get too upset about death itself, but, imposed death. Okay, like I said, I can't really say much about death. Death is a tricky one for me. I'm big on the experience thing, so obviously the experiences are the important thing. So brutal death, well, he loses on that count. Lots of brutal deaths, lots of slow, horrible deaths, and lots of suffering. That's how you measure this shit, in my opinion. If you were just snapping your finger and you're wiped out, if I snapped my finger and killed all the Turks, let's say, I mean, it might be not a nice thing to do, but it'd be hard to define the nature of that Holocaust. Like, what did we lose? Some kind of food or something? Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to, hats? Footwear? I don't know. What do we, where's the horror? The horror. One of the varieties of the domestic dog is, I snap my fingers and it's gone. There's a horror there. We don't have that subspecies or whatever, that breed. I'm just saying it's hard to manifest that into the same kind of horror. Just like if I snap my fingers and the earth split in half and everything got vaporized in a second. From my perspective, it doesn't look good, but I don't know. can't really say that something significantly bad happened, because from my perspective the implication is, yeah, they're just like the Martians. I wasn't crying about the Martians, so why the hell should I be crying about the Earthlings? Anyway, so that's where things get a little funky, because yes, traditional society puts all this value on life, and they put all deaths in the same category. Any death is the same death. They don't value the torture or the suffering at all. It's just, oh, he died, that's the bad thing. And let's just, who cares whether he died in a second or he died in 6 years of torture. They just write it up in the paper the same way. To me, you can't get more significant than the detail of how they died. That's the story. How you die is the story. Dying's not the story. What you left behind is the story. That kind of shit. What the world will have to do without, that's the story. Anyway, so I understand, we're having this conversation, we're running across a plane of foundation, and yet we don't have one. We got this really big rocks, and we're trying to drive on this road of huge rocks. There's just, it's not gravel, it's fucking rocks. And that's problematic. And the fact is, though, agreeing to disagree, I'm not doing that. That's never going to happen. I'm never going to shake Hitler's hand and say, it's okay, buddy, let's just get along. No, not going to happen. And especially in this case, like I said, that's like the North American Indians agreeing to disagree with the Europeans or something. Yeah, sure, let's agree to disagree, and you're going to just annihilate us, right? And, and then you'll enslave us with your stupid religion, and you'll just humiliate the shit out of us, and just basically make us piss our own pants and shit our own pants, and make us look completely foolish, because we'll be just, some bastardized version of some sort of cartoon character in the future. We'll just be little cartoon characters that, whoa, 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 dance around a fire now and then, and throw some herbs into it, and go, blah, 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 I'm an Indian. Yeah, it's going to be so impressive. Yes, oh yeah, let's agree to disagree, and this will be the future I get. Yeah, fuck that. So yeah, there's no agreeing to disagree. And like I said, it's nothing personal. It's not like I wish you any kind of harm, but I'm just saying, the only way I spare my kind from torture is to plug the fuck out of your vaginas. And if you're not going to let me plug your vaginas, then we're going to have a problem. Theoretically. I'm always going to look at you as something that's a Nazi, a piece of something to throw fucking acorns at and say, fuck you, cunt. Anyway, enough of video. I think I said my piece here. So, I mean, look, I'm willing to keep talking about all these little elements of understanding. But, I don't want to get too, sorry. Yeah, so, yeah, short videos are impossible for me. Anyway, but I was thinking about the word enlightenment and teacher and all that kind of stuff. And it goes back to this enlightenment I had when I was 11 years old. And that's when I saw the game. And so, yeah, it's really hard for me to say that wasn't an enlightenment. And, Piero made a video on, going from first person to third person as a progression in kind of the maturity of thought. He didn't say that, but it sort of looked like that. Like, the more mature your thought process gets, the more able you are to expand to this higher view of your function, this overview. And that it seems an advancement in thinking, not a degrade in thinking. And but yeah, for me, that was it. I mean, when I was about 11 years old is when I really had the big, holy shit. I could see myself being an asshole. I could see myself playing a shitty game. And it just, I could start it to see how everything's tied to everything else, and you can't get away with doing this stuff for free. Every little cut of the corner you make, somebody else has to go around that corner. Everything you leave behind, you drink milk out of the bottle, you do something cheaty, that this has real implications. It's not just wrong because somebody said it was wrong. It's wrong because it has these negative implications, and if everybody does this shit, then you're not living in a civilization. And I got that. I got the fact for the first time that these rules have nothing to do with just making stupid rules. They have to do with the fact that I don't want somebody else drinking out of my milk bottle, and that life isn't good if I have to worry about whether somebody washed their hands when they left the bathroom or all this other kind of crap. So that's why these rules exist, is because that's what civilization is, and that there's this huge amount of waste that would happen in terms of things being exterminated and annihilated and harmed if you don't have systems to regulate behavior. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just saying that enlightenment to me, that was I would argue that whatever you think you have acquired in terms of a perspective that made you go, wow, well, that was it. And I think, maybe I'm just saying, I don't know how I can challenge you to go there. I can say, well, ride the tiger and acquire a true third-person perspective. Turn yourself into just really somebody who isn't self-interested for just a little while, and then float above the game and see that that thing doesn't matter. All these things matter. Alright. Just saying. Son. It's really hard to do this without really, I'll give you credit. Yes, you're playing along, and so you're not getting offended. And I'm being very careful not to get shitty. But it's really difficult because you can't get a deeper disagreement. In my opinion, it's just pretty hard, fundamental, black, white, whatever, 180 degrees almost perspective. It's 178 degrees anyway. It's a lot of degrees of difference. Alright, but anyway, till next time, such.